Hello and welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I am pretty good, sir. Yourself?
Yeah, very well. Busy, very busy week, but I've got a cup of tea, got a whiskey. I'm happy.
A whiskey?
Yeah, man. Chill out after work, having a whiskey, talking to my mate about movies.
Sweet.
Yeah, good way to start the weekend. It's been one of those weeks, you know. It's just been one of those weeks, but it's all good. Yeah, how have you been? You've been all right?
Yeah. Same old.
Excellent.
SSBT and all that.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's just get right into it, I suppose. What have you been watching, Matt?
Well, I shall start with Bruised.
Bruised, yes, on the list of films I almost watched this week. So, yes, tell me about Bruised.
It's on Netflix at the moment. It stars Halle Berry, Aidan Canto, Sheila Atim, and it is the directorial debut of Halle Berry as well.
Yes, which I'm quite excited for. I always find directorial debuts exciting, especially when it's an actor or a musician or anyone moving into that field. I'm always like, I wonder how that's going to go.
It's nice to see how they cope with it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, she's been in the industry a long time now, so she's presumably picked up some things. But I guess you'll tell me now.
So, I mean, you definitely thought so. This is the story about. She's called Jackie Justice, and she was a MMA fighter, and in her big sort of fight against a sort of a big opponent, she basically choked and basically got completely caned and tried to sort of climb over the fence. She seemed to have some sort of panic attack.
Okay. Is this based on a true story? Sorry to interrupt.
It is not.
Okay,
no.
Cool. Okay, right.
It's before that point she seemed to be undefeated. So she was making a name for herself. She was, getting pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly something happened that night. So you now come to sort of now, and she is basically cleaning toilets and cleaning for rich families.
Okay.
She lives with Desi, who is her boyfriend stroke manager, who is a complete piece of shit, basically.
Okay.
He's just an asshole. And she's clearly got a drinking problem because she comes home and you see her sneak into the house while her boyfriend's asleep, take out a bottle from a locked cupboard and empty the bottle into a squirty cleaning bottle under the sink, which she, drinks from occasionally.
Right, okay.
While this is happening, he then takes her, the next day he sort of takes her to this underground fight sort of club.
Yeah.
Where she watches this woman called Werewolf, who is the biggest woman. She's absolutely huge.
That is a fucking name for a fighter.
Yeah, she says that is not a woman, that's a man. He's like, nope, it's definitely a woman.
God damn.
And you see her decimate this other woman.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody notices in the crowd, that's like, earlier on you also saw while she was sat outside a thing, some kids, some sort of young blokes notice her and like film her and say, she washed up and that was Jackie Justice and all that sort of stuff.
Right, so she's like I guess still a celebrity, much to her like chagrin. She wants nothing to do with it. Yeah,
sort of bit of a joke, I suppose, because because what happened on this night. And anyway, she gets in this crowd. She gets spotted again, and her boyfriend brought her there because of this.
Yeah,
he wants to sort of do something. And there's a sort of fight promoter there that spots her, and he's watching her. And basically, this massive werewolf woman. That makes her sound like she's a real werewolf.
It sounds great, yeah.
Not a real werewolf.
That would be a twist.
She baits her to the point where she fights back and absolutely decimates her. She full on headbutts her into the ground. Basically, Jackie Justice does.
Okay.
So it proves that she's still
capable and dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems to be a sort of a triggered by anger.
Mm-hmm.
Is her thing. But she didn't want to be there. She's really upset with her boyfriend because he basically shanghaied her,
put her into that position. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's then approached by this promoter guy. I'm trying to find who he is actually. I can't remember what it is. Oh, Immaculate. That's what he's called. I think that's him. He comes over and says, I know who you are. I saw what you do. I can, bring you back out. I'll give you a decent fight. I want to make sure. And she's like, no, I'm past that.
I'm done. Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. But she takes his card, sort of thing, and she decides. You can see that she's thinking about it. When they get home, her mother, who she's clearly not got the best relationship with, is outside her house, and she has a small child with her who I think he's 6,
right?
Which is her child, but she left basically the kid and the dad, I think, and the child moved to I think South America,
right?
And now he's died, and the child left alone. So she's now got this kid that she has no idea what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's hasn't seen since basically she gave birth to him, and he's on her doorstep. And basically from there you get she's going to fight again. So you get the whole sort of fight of redemption and trying to find her mothering skills.
Yeah.
She gets sort of trained by this woman called she calls herself Budokan, which I thought was quite funny. So she's called Budokan, and she's I think she's an English actress. She's certainly got an English actress. I have seen her in a few other things. Sheila Atom, and she is this sort of like Buddhist chanting sort of like it's actually quite cool trainer, and she sort of at first she thinks, oh god, this is going to be terrible. She's a fucking joke. I don't trust her. But there's this guy there who I thought this was very odd. It's the guy that played Fufa in the latest Dune.
Oh yeah,
Stephen McKinley Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
So he's clearly another sort of trainer, and he's there as well. Now, weirdly, he sort of stands in the background most of the time, and he doesn't say an awful lot. And then there's a bit at the end, which I'm not going to spoil. There's a bit sort of towards the end of the movie where he's sort of like brought forward, but because he's not really done enough, it seems very odd when his role is sort of brought forward. It's like, it would have been nicer to have got more on this guy, but
do you think there was some cut scenes there or something that have kind of harmed that?
Maybe. So I will say, this is, I think, actually one of Berry's best performance, because she is not scared of looking fucking awful and being an almost unlikable character, actually.
Well, that's the point of a redemption story, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's very difficult to get to to redeem yourself if you don't start off as somewhat unlikable, or down and out at least,
or just some sort, like you said, like down and out sort of thing. So I think she does. It's a really good portrayal, and I'm not, unbeknownst to me, she's actually a massive MMA fighter. Apparently, she goes to most of the events
as a fan.
Right. She's a real fan. So she obviously got in with the people there, and there are obviously the woman playing Werewolf is a real fighter.
Sure, I imagine the movie's full of if you know the fighters, you'll see them in the movie.
And the fighter she fights at the end is another. She's got a Russian name. I can't remember what she's called now. She's really good as well. I thought for the most part, because she's fighting at one of the I can't remember which particular weight it is. It's like featherweight type thing.
Yeah.
Because she's fighting at the very sort of small small weight, she's believable as as a fighter. I think she does a pretty convincing job. I mean, some people will probably disagree, but I think she did a pretty convincing job as a fighter.
Sure.
The actual fights themselves, I thought, were pretty well handled.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure whether she directed the fight scenes herself, or whether she had someone else. But
I mean, she probably had experts at least. That know fights and fight choreography.
But I think they were filmed pretty well. For the most part, for the most of the time, you see what's going on, which is always
it's
bugbear with me when you see a boxing movie or a fight movie and you can't actually see what's fucking going on.
It's very. And I think that usually speaks to the lack of ability of the actors to perform in the scene. Shaking the camera about and being far too zoomed in always strikes me as like they don't really know how to fight. They're not really fighting very well, so we're going to hide it. Whereas it shows a lot more confidence when you're willing to show. You're like, okay, we think these people have got the skills to actually pull this off convincingly. We're going to show you what's happening. So that's good. That's really good.
I'm not saying it's the best fighting I've ever seen.
No, but you're right, because that's a bugbear of mine too. Actually, with fight scenes, it really annoys me. The old, the worst for me is always the knife fights when it's just people flicking a knife around in front of the camera. That always annoys me. Like the end of Under Siege.
Oh God!
I
do not remember it well enough to remember how bad it is, but I can imagine.
I haven't watched it for a long time, but from what I remember, it was just Seagal and Tommy Lee waving a knife around in front of the camera really quickly and hoping for the best.
Slow. Tommy Lee? Which Tommy Lee?
Jones.
No, I know which one. I know which one you meant. Yes, so I think that her performance is really, really good. I actually really liked the character of Boudica, and I thought she was really interesting.
Yeah.
There's a sort of again, not trying to give it away. Something happens which I thought, okay, I'm not quite sure I believe it happening, but okay, right. I'll go with it.
Okay,
it's fine. When it actually happens, it was like, okay, I see what it's fine that it's happened. And actually, I thought it was done quite well, and it's interesting where it goes. But at first you think, oh, okay, I'm not sure whether did that come out of nowhere, or have I missed something, sort of thing.
Sure.
There's Adrienne Lennox, who plays her mother, is quite interesting because she's not exactly horrible, but it does seem to it suggests that she wasn't a great mother, sort of, and some terrible things happened to Jackie when she was younger. And at first you're sort of like, it goes, oh, you see how horrible it was and how shocking it is, but then it's kind of swept away and you don't really deal with it. She's just okay with her mother, and it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But I guess there's only so much you can fit in a movie, to move it on. I thought the little kid was really good. He's he doesn't speak from he's after the death of his father, he's basically silent.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know this woman. She's this big. When he first sees her, she's all mashed up, because she's just been beaten up, and she's sort of terrifying. There is quite a lot of melodrama in this. It's at times it's more about the sort of mother stuff at times, and which is not a problem. I think it will be a problem for a lot of people who want more of a fight movie, but it's not that sort of fight movie. So
yeah,
I, for the most part, really enjoyed it. I thought it was actually she did a very good job of directing for her first attempt. I think I would actually go out of my way to watch anything she directs in future.
Well, it sounds like not only was it a very strong directorial debut, but also one of her strongest acting roles as well, which is pretty impressive.
I think so. I think she did a really good job. I mean, there's one particular scene which is not really giving anything away, but she basically has a meltdown in a restaurant bathroom.
Okay.
And I thought that was handled particularly well. I thought it was really, really good. And yeah, there's some really nice stuff in it. There's some really good sort of character scenes that I really, really enjoyed, and I thought she was just great. And I'm not a massive Halle Berry fan, to be honest.
We were discussing this before we went on air, and I said I think she's fine. I think she's just often very miscast.
I would definitely agree with that. I think there are certain roles where she's been very good, like Monsters Ball and stuff like that. And then there's a few roles where it's like, oh, I'm not sure she was the right person for this role, or
I never saw her as Storm, particularly.
She grew on me.
She grew on me, but I think I don't know. I guess like kid from '84. I was used to. For me, Storm was like the animated series with the the strong accent and everything else, and I guess they, and I loved how like Storm in the cartoons was like so over the top and and I kind of like I always missed for me Storm is best when she's doing her kind of chanting to the weather and all that, like calling to the weather and stuff. I love all that stuff. That I know it's cheesy. It doesn't translate well to film.
I don't think it would have.
But it's it's awesome. But going from that to Halle Berry, and Halle Berry's performance of Storm is quite very understated by comparison. I mean, she's got that one awful line in the first movie, which made me laugh. Yeah,
but the thing is that you could fix that line.
I know
with just so many different things. Not like. Do
you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? Isn't that what it is? And then she's like, she hits him. It's like the same thing that happens to everything else. Like that was the worst line. That's not her fault. That's a writing.
No, it's not her fault. It's like whoever wrote that was like
a fucking idiot.
Like. Let's find
Goya,
out.
Right? I'm assuming.
Funny, wouldn't it? When you said, "Do you know what happens when you struck lightning with it?" Let's find out.
That works better. I mean, it's a cheesy line, but it at least works better. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's not really her fault.
Not at all.
I think she suffered from one of those. One of the.
She also would have made one hell of a Bond girl, were she not in one of the worst Bond movies. I think she would have been great as a Bond girl, not in that film.
She's not the reason that movie sucks.
No, not at all. Not by a long stretch is that her fault.
She's doing her best.
She is. She's doing her best.
She's one of the bright spots in that movie, actually, Jinx. I mean, so much so that they were going to do a spin-off.
I'd have watched a spin-off of Jinx.
Do you know, I probably would have.
She's kind of cool. She was kind of, like you said, of all the things in that movie, Jinx is not the problem.
Personally, I would have rather have seen the spin-off with Michelle Yeoh's character, but
or both have them team up.
That would have been. Oh, I see now that, and now you're talking.
Yeah,
that definitely watched.
Because I'm a big fan of buddy movies. I like that, so I could have got behind that.
And the spy one with those two would have been great.
Yeah.
But and I think the thing that she suffered from the most, I think, is that I think people cast her on her looks.
Yeah, sure. And she's actually a good actress.
Exactly, that's the problem. It's like she can actually act. Don't just cast her because she looks good.
No, absolutely.
Give her something to fucking do.
Yeah.
I think she's been in a lot of very bad movies. I think is the problem.
Yeah, I agree.
But I genuinely think this is a good movie. I think it's again, it's not going to be for everybody's taste.
And hopefully,
we'll be disappointed with the fight stuff, but I thought the fight stuff was pretty good.
I'm sure if you're like a massive MMA fan and you watch fights all the time, but that's no different than if you're in the military and then you watch a military movie, you're going to be like, well,
I mean, I do like to watch MMA a bit.
I do a bit, but I'm not going to claim to,
I'm not going to claim that I'm a massive fan or anything, but I know a bit.
Yeah.
And I do watch the occasional fight. I enjoy watching them, but when you watch the fight at the end, you will see things like, you will see telegraphed shots
Sure.
and all that. But I don't see that as a problem, really. I think it's done well enough that it holds up enough. It's not
Well,
your Hong Kong martial arts extravaganza or anything, but
No.
What is.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I will definitely be checking Bruised out. It was on my list. I just didn't get to it.
Give it a go.
So I certainly will. This was not planned. We don't know what each other watches, right? So this is not a planned segue into. This just happens to be the only movie I've watched this week. But from one fight to another fight, I watched Rocky versus Drago, the Stallone recut of Rocky 4.
Oh, I've heard about this, yeah.
Yes, and I will say up front, before I even go into this, I will say you absolutely owe it to yourself. It's for free on YouTube. Go and watch the documentary about this, because I do feel the documentary that Stallone has made about making this recut is probably far more interesting than the actual movie. It's really good. It's just a really, really interesting look at someone kind of looking back over a film that they made, I don't know, 30 years ago or something, and just thinking, I want to do something different. I made mistakes here, and I want to try and correct them or change them. So this kind of is. I'm a huge Rocky fan. For starters, to put that out there, in case I haven't mentioned that on the show before. I'm sure I have. And
that's twice.
Rocky 4 is, I think it's fair to say, always been the outlier when it comes to the tone. Like the obviously Rocky is a masterpiece of a movie. Rocky 2, it's very much in the same tone, but it's I don't think it's quite on the level of Rocky. Most sequels aren't. Rocky 3 again starts to get a little more silly. You've got the wrestling match with Thunder Lips and that kind of stuff. But tonally, I think
that's the one I've seen the least. Not including the newer ones.
Yeah.
The older ones. That's the one I've seen least, I think.
But it still tonally kind of fits to an extent. It fits better. 4 is insane. Or was insane, and then 5 kind of tried to bring it back to the more realistic thing, although Rocky 5 definitely has its issues. And I think that's the biggest thing I have here, is that I do feel like Rocky 4, as much as it deviated from the tone of the other movies, it was certainly a better movie than Rocky 5 ended up being. And I kind of feel like if there was a movie he was going to take, Rocky 5 would be the one, because I know there's a very good work print for Rocky 5 out there that could make a much better movie if he decided to do a director's cut of that. And I hope he does, actually, after doing Rocky 4 here. But I guess, he was sat around in the pandemic and he was like, well, I can't make movies. What can I do? I'll go back and recut Rocky 4 into more of how he's now obviously a lot older, a lot wiser. What would I do with this movie that I made back in the day? It's quite different to the rest of the series. So he's basically taken the original Rocky 4, and he has removed a lot of scenes and put in a lot of scenes. There's 4.
I know what has been removed, because I've seen
the robot is gone. Yes.
Yeah, he completely removed all the Paulie robot stuff.
Paulie's robot is gone. And a lot of things have gone. There's about 40 minutes of new footage, basically, but the movie only runs a few minutes longer, so a lot of that footage, a lot of stuff has been removed and a lot of things have been
it's just replaced.
Yeah. And you can see that he's very much tried to bring it in line tonally with the rest of the series. So the as you said, Paulie's robot is no more. He doesn't exist. She doesn't exist in the movie, right? The fight scenes, for the most part, where possible, and we'll get to it, where possible, much more realistic. It doesn't sound like shotgun blast when they punch each other anymore. The punching sounds a lot more realistic. The fights are longer, the fights are longer and a bit more kind of realistic as much as possible. And it changes quite a bit in terms of Apollo, probably more than anyone else. I know that Stallone said that he regrets killing Apollo off, which I disagree with personally. I think killing Apollo off was the right thing to do.
Not wanting someone to be murdered, but I think that's one of the best
for the
things
character. It's character motivation. I think he needed to die. But this movie does change that quite a bit, and it's kind of weird when so I put it on and I was like, am I watching Rocky 4 or Rocky 3? Because there's like a load of Rocky 3 scenes at the start of this movie. It pretty much kind of recaps Rocky 3 and what happened there. And it kind of felt unnecessary until you get to the next couple of scenes, because the movie... The movie that isn't Rocky 3, the movie basically opens with Apollo, and it very much changes the motivations of Apollo. So, in the original Rocky 4 cut, it was like Apollo fucking hates Russians. He hates the communists coming over, and he's like, we gotta show them. Whereas in this movie, it's much more about Apollo's journey from 1 to 3, and he wants to prove that he's still got it. It's very much more about Apollo wanting to prove that he's still a fighter. He's still he's still relevant. He wants to prove he's still relevant, and that's much more his motivation going into the fight with Drago rather than Russians bad. And there are some great scenes in that way, and that's kind of interesting to see. And yeah, the Rocky 3 footage at the opening kind of really supports that. We get a few more lines from Drago. Not many, because he doesn't talk much anyway. But the movie, I think Stallone kind of tries to paint him more sympathetically.
More as a human than actual.
Yeah, more as a human and more as a puppet. Like, we get a scene recut in the press conference, one of the press conferences, and he tries to start speaking. And then his kind of, his trainer starts talking for him and giving all of the political speak and
the party line, towing the party line.
Yeah, towing the party line. So you do kind of see him as a little more sympathetic in this, although he does still do the immortal, like, if he dies, he dies line. That line's still in there. The montages are still there. I was really surprised, actually. I thought he was going to get rid of those, but they're still there, so that was great. I was happy. I still got no easy way out, and
can't get rid of montages. That would be a terrible thing.
That's like half the movie with Rocky 4. Rocky 4 is just one big montage. And I would say the ending is quite changed as well, because I mean, if you remember the original from Rocky 4, Rocky kind of resolves the Cold War.
Yes. Change, you can change everything.
Yeah, and in this version, I think he might make it worse. It doesn't help at all.
Why the hell does that happen?
Well, in the original, so he does the speech. He does the same speech from Rocky 4. And the audience clap. Now, in the original, the audience clap, and then the politicians clap, and everyone's like, yes, Rocky's right. In this one, the audience clap, the politicians look fucking furious, and they storm the fuck out of the place. So it's kind of like, I think he might have raised tensions rather than helping. But, it's cool. And the new scenes are very interesting. As a fan of Rocky and having watched Rocky 4 as much as I have, really interesting to see different scenes. We get like the funeral scene for Apollo. We get lots of different scenes. The problems come, and there are problems. The biggest problems being, you really notice that there are scenes missing, and it really completely buggers up the flow of the movie for me. Like, there's scenes where you're like, this doesn't really flow into the next scene, and where's the scene that gives context to this, and how does we end up here? Like, I know how we ended up there because I've seen Rocky 4 and I know it like the back of my hand. I understand, but watching it here, you're like, this, it feels less like a full movie and more like a really good kind of work print that needs bits, because you kind of feel when you're watching it, you're like, I can see what Stallone's trying to do, but obviously he couldn't go back and film new scenes because everyone's far too old to do that.
I was going to say, like it being 30 odd years ago now. Good luck with that.
It's an interesting experiment.
It, I suppose.
Yeah, but it ends up being a very interesting experiment where it's like, I can see what you were trying to do here, and it's fun to watch that. And as a Rocky fan, I love it. I really enjoyed it. It won't replace Rocky 4 for me, but it is an interesting change, and it does fit totally with the rest.
That's it. I mean, it's been a long Rocky. I catch like all the time. The first one I catch all the time because
masterpiece.
Rocky is a genuinely phenomenal movie.
It really is.
I think Rocky's the best of, still hands down the best movie. And it's been a while since I've seen 4.
Sure.
But, I mean, would I notice?
Yeah. I think you'd certainly notice some things. I mean, for one thing, one of the biggest victims of this cut is Paulie. Because they've cut out all of the Paulie's robot stuff, you've lost most of Paulie's scenes. And then it kind of feels awkward at the end when Paulie's like has that redemption moment when he cries at Rocky and he says, you know, of all the people I've ever known, if I could be anyone, I'd be you. He still says that in this movie, but like because most of his scenes are missing, it kind of feels like it's not really earned.
There's nothing yet, right?
You know, because we don't see Paulie as the drunk, angry, you know, the angry drunk at the start, and we don't see, you know, his interactions with the robot and all of that stuff.
That's a bit weird.
Well, I mean, I can see why, because he wanted to remove the robot because it was ridiculous. But in removing the robot, you've removed most of Paulie's scenes.
That's unfortunate, isn't it?
So it's kind of. Yeah, but again, I don't think... So what I'm trying to get at is I really enjoyed this as a Rocky fan, and I would recommend it if you're a fan of Rocky movies, you know, especially if you like Rocky 4. Really interesting. I don't think it works terribly well as its own movie. It's a cool, interesting experiment and companion piece to the movie.
Okay.
And I can see what he was trying to do. And I kind of feel like, God, if he could go back and remake the whole movie back in the 80s when it was made, it would be amazing. But the reality is he had to work with what he had, and I think he did a great job, but it does feel quite disjointed, and it does feel like scenes don't really flow very well. But it's very interesting. I had a great time watching it, and well, I guess I will have a great time watching it because I ended up buying it was the only way I could watch it, so I will be watching it again. But you know,
would recommend it to anybody who's actually a fan.
Yes, absolutely. I think if you're a fan of I wouldn't recommend it if you're a non-fan, because I don't think as a movie it works terribly well unless you can remember Rocky 4. Because like I said, it is quite disjointed in places, but it was very interesting, and it's a very interesting idea. Someone going back and being like, actually, I'm going to try and change the movie that I made as much as I can. It's an interesting experiment, and I think as a filmmaker, it was very interesting to watch.
That sort of thing only usually really works if there's enough to be reinserted.
Well, there's a lot to be inserted. There's like 40 minutes of different footage in this movie, so they obviously filmed a lot. But it unfortunately, like I said, some scenes don't quite flow into each other in a usable way, in my opinion.
It's a shame.
But it's an interesting experiment. I certainly don't. I certainly don't regret watching it or buying it, and I will certainly be watching it again. I just don't know if I was like, hey Paula, want to watch Rocky versus Drago? I'd just be like, well, she's gonna be like, this doesn't really make much. I mean, it works kind of, but you'd be like, it feels like there's some stuff missing. Whereas if I showed her Rocky 4,
so basically, this thing is just clearly for people who know the movie.
It's for the fans. I think it's for the fans for sure.
Okay.
And from that perspective, it works.
There's enough of them which makes it worthwhile. So
absolutely, and you can tell it was a real passion project for Stallone. And I do genuinely, not joking, I genuinely highly recommend the documentary that Stallone's made on YouTube. It's only like filmed with like a camera phone or a couple of cameras, but it's really interesting seeing him revisit and the things he wanted to do. It's really interesting. So no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just feel like I have to temper expectations if you're going in expecting this to be a fluid movie that makes perfect sense and doesn't have any kind of issues, because you can see what he's trying to do. It's just difficult getting there 30 years later. But I recommend it. Cool. Rocky versus Drago. What else have you watched?
So I have seen Queen Pins.
Queen Pins, which I hoped when you mentioned it was going to be a bowling movie, but it's not. So it's a crime movie.
It is not like bowling.
No.
So this is Kristen Bell, Kirby Howell Baptiste, Paul Walter Hauser, Bibi Rexa, who I only know in vague passing.
Yeah.
This is apparently her debut film, I think. Joel McHale and oh my word, I cannot find him now. Why is he not even on the thing? I can't find his name.
He doesn't exist.
Doesn't matter.
It'll come back to you.
It will come back to me. So yes, directed and written by Aaron Gaudet, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It looks French, so I'll miss the T. I'll miss the T off.
Sure.
Gaudet, I think. So this is based on a true story, and it's about Connie, played by Kristen Bell, who is a housewife who was I think 3 times Olympian power runner.
Okay.
Power walker. And she explains that basically means nothing because most Olympians are dirt poor and, no one cares.
Sure, that's true, actually.
Yeah, so her and her husband played by Joe McHale, he works for the IRS, and it's clear that they no longer have the spark. You find out basically that they were trying to have a kid, and they couldn't, so they tried IVF a number of times, and it's now basically left them sort of completely out of pocket. They have no money, so she basically survives and gets joy by using coupons.
Okay.
So she has a room which was going to be the baby's room, but it's just full.
It's just full of coupons.
No, it's full of stuff she's bought with the coupons.
Oh, I see. I thought you were going to say she's got like a room just full of coupons for any given situation.
She kind of has all these coupons in that room as well, but it's mostly full of things like bulk bought softener.
She'd be great during the pandemic, is what you're telling me.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And there is even toilet roll stuff. Anyway, so she's got a friend called Jojo who lives next door, and she is a sort of she's another one that likes the sort of these bargains and things and these coupons, and she has this sort of this YouTube sort of show where she tells people how they can save on these coupons and things. It's not terribly successful, and she lives with her mother who despairs at her, and at some point somebody stole her identity and completely ruined her credit rating, so she had to move back in with her mother, and she's dirt poor as well.
Right.
So one day Connie she's bought these like Wheaties or something, like loads of these Wheaties, and it's funny when she goes to the sort of supermarket, and you can see that the checkout guy like fucking hates her, because she comes in, she's got this trolley full of stuff, and it's like $160 or something, and she's like, no it isn't, and she gives him these vouchers, and he's just there going over, and you see the money going down and down and down, and it ends up being $16.
Right.
And she sort of turns around to the guy behind her and says, "I'm very sorry," and he says, "No, that was impressive."
Yeah, even like as annoying as it is when someone's in front of you doing that, it's like, actually that was pretty impressive that you knocked it down that much.
You saved like 150 quid sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the cashier guy, the kiddie, hates her, but which is quite funny. So she goes home. She sort of has a bit of a she's reminded of the child that she lost,
right? And
she opens this pack of Wheaties, and they're off. So she writes this letter to the company saying, these Wheaties were off, and it was really, really, really bad, and she was really upset about it. And the company sent her a voucher for Wheaties completely free, no money at all.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So she and her friend, she basically realizes that these vouchers are printed in a company in Mexico.
Right.
So she realizes that if she can get hold of a load of these vouchers, she can sell them to people.
Sure.
So they go to Mexico. They again, which is I thought it was quite funny when they find these two people that they think that they can sort of coerce into stealing coupons for them, and it's actually quite funny when they sort of they're following them home sort of thing, and of course they're in Mexico, so when people get followed in Mexico, they immediately think the worst, and it's sort of really funny sort of scene ensues with this guy pulling a gun on them, and the sort of his wife running away sort of thing. And it's like, no, we're not here to kidnap you and do horrible things. We want to offer you like a job sort of thing. So basically, they persuade these two people to help them, and they then start this business. And they not quite completely sure how to go about certain things.
Yeah.
And Kristen Bell's character persuades them to look for the girl who stole her friend's identity. So she turns out to be this sort of now she regrets ruining her sort of life. She didn't she didn't mean to do that. She just was stealing basically.
Yeah.
She didn't mean so, but she agrees to help them. She's like this wazzy computer hacker, as only a computer hacker can be in these movies. And yes. she agrees to help them. She basically says, do this, and they say, could you say that all again, but like slower?
Yeah.
Or could we write it all down? And she's like, no, fuck off. I've told you what to do. No, fuck off.
Go do it. Yeah,
yeah. Like, we'll wing it. So then you're then introduced to Ken, played by Paul Walter Hauser, who is he's a coupon inspector for the company, for this this company, and he is like comically awful.
Right.
If you've seen him in what was it called, the I, Tanya? If you've seen him in
yes.
I, Tanya,
that's a good movie.
He's kind of like that character, but probably more annoying.
Okay.
He's like that, and he basically goes to different branches of these supermarkets, and he looks into coupon fraud, which apparently is a massive thing. Who knew?
Yeah, I had no idea, but that makes sense.
So they realise that he gets this call saying that there seemed to be an increase in the coupon usage.
Sure.
And all these things are going, and he's sort of thinking, well, these, there's something wrong going on. So he goes to the FBI, and the FBI basically fob him off.
Sure.
Yeah, right, you're fine. Yeah, we'll definitely get right on.
We will absolutely put this on our list and get to it someday.
They sort of give it to the lowest FBI agent they can possibly find to sort of bury it. But he actually finds something, and he tells this Ken character that, there's something in it. And he's like, oh, you told me that we're going to be like feet on the ground and stuff. And he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But he ends up they end up going to this guy who's a postal inspector, and it's, why can't I fucking remember his name? He doesn't even seem to be in the fucking cast list, which is really annoying. It's really tall guy.
Really tall guy. Stephen Merchant.
No, American. Older. He was in. This is so annoying.
Anyway,
Vince Vaughn.
Well done. Okay, yep.
Fucking hell.
He's very tall. You're right.
Really low on the list. Sorry.
No, that's okay. He is very tall as well.
Vince Vaughn he's a postal inspector basically. He goes. He's sort of like, the postal service is very important. We're better than the FBI sort of thing. He's that sort of character.
Sure.
And basically they both realise that that something's going on here. They realise that they can sort of trace this through the postal service because of they're giving these coupons out using the mail and things. And there is some ridiculous humour between those stuff, which, sometimes it verges on crass and annoying. But I will say, for the most part, I did find this genuinely funny. There's enough in there. I think mileage is going to vary a great deal. It is a true story, but it has been massively altered to make it funny.
Sure.
The real, the characters are nothing like the real people. Certain characters did not exist. Things didn't quite work out the way that they do in the film. But having said that, I really enjoyed it. It was it made me laugh, which is fucking
kind of
good
key,
in a
key for a comedy. Yep.
I do find Kirsten Bell adorable, which always kind of helps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
And I really liked The Good Place, which also Kirby Howell-Baptiste, the woman who plays JoJo, she was in that as well, and she was also actually in the last season of Veronica Mars, so they clearly know each other.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It's bloody silly, and some of the stuff is you think, oh god, this that really couldn't have happened that way, surely, but it probably didn't. But I did like it. I think it was one of the funnier comedies I've seen in recent times. It worked for me. It's it's not high art or anything, but I did like it. Kristen Bell's great. Kirby Howell-Baptiste is really charming. She's actually going to be playing Death in the Sandman series that's coming to Netflix.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which is interesting. We'll see how that goes. I mean, she's actually a quite pretty good actress. We've seen her.
I'm curious. I'm curious about Sandman. I've always felt it's kind of unadaptable, but I
mean, it's probably my favorite comic. So
you're probably going to hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the trailer that they've shown so far. I
didn't even know there was a trailer.
Yeah, there's a trailer. It's got.
See, you were saying this about Moon Knight. I didn't know there was a trailer for Sandman. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. It's been out for a while. It basically shows the capture from the beginning of the graphic novel with Burgess.
I will check that out.
Getting capturing the Sandman. Yeah, I mean, the cast list for that is really great. So
it's fantastic cast. Yeah.
Really willing to give it a go.
Absolutely.
So I'm hopeful for it. Hopefully, it won't degenerate into what American Gods became, but we'll see.
I didn't get on with American Gods, if I'm honest.
It got worse and worse and worse, and I was the annoying thing is we were struggling with it. We kept going with it.
Yeah.
And then they cancelled it, and it's like, oh, I should have just fucking finished.
You should have just given up. Yeah, you were struggling for no reason.
Finished 2 seasons ago. Because they were just stretching it out. I mean, It's a pretty big book, but to be fair, they stretched it beyond it, and they changed so much towards, that last season was so,
awful.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
Fucking terrible. But, hopefully that won't happen with this, but...
hopefully not. I mean, like you said, cast alone is impressive. So, although the cast was great for that too.
American Gods was great as well. Yeah.
So it's hard to, yeah. I hear Good Omens has got a new series, which I'm kind of happy about. I quite enjoyed Good Omens.
See what to do with that, because there is only one.
Yes, but they're doing another one. So,
I mean, Gaiman did say apparently that he and Pratchett did talk about a sequel, so maybe they did have plans. I guess
maybe they'll adapt the ideas, but I really enjoyed the first season of that. So
I must admit, I didn't finish it.
Oh, did you not? No, I did. I didn't until lockdown happened and I couldn't see my fiance for 6 months. So I watched a lot during that time because I had nothing better to do with my life. So
I think whenever Crowley and Azrael were on screen, it was great. Those two were amazing.
They've got natural chemistry together.
When it was with a lot of the other stuff, like the witch hunters and stuff, it was like, oh,
Sure.
This is I don't know what I mean. The Shadwell character. I mean, I like I can't remember what his name is. The guy who played Shadwell. I thought I like him as an actor, but he was so badly miscast as Shadwell. It was
Yeah.
terrible. And I don't know. Yeah, there was a lot wrong with it, and I didn't do a lot for me. So I kind of I'm sure I'll watch it eventually, but I kind of gave up on it.
Yeah. Well,
going back to Queen Pins, I would say, if you want something funny, give it a go. It depends on your humor. It is at times quite crass humor.
Sure.
But it's light comedy fare. It's
yeah, it's fun.
Two people committing fraud.
And in this
technically not committing fraud
in this day and age, it's nice to have a bit of comedy, and it's gonna actually flows into what I'm gonna say about the series I watched. But did you want to do the last movie, because you've got another movie to go, and we could do movies and then we'll move into TV, because you've also got TV to talk about.
So I saw Injustice.
Yes, and I am excited to hear about this, because I heard some reasonably good things when this came out, so I'm curious. So Injustice obviously is the DC,
it's
Superman gone bad story.
It's based on the game, on the games, because there's more than one now. And it's basically in the games it takes the premise that Superman.
Joker kills Lois effectively. Isn't that what happens?
So basically the Joker goes to Gotham and he tricks. Well, he uses sort of a kryptonite gas, which he's mixed with his laughing gas, to trick the Superman into believing that Lois is Doomsday.
Yeah.
So the very pregnant Lois.
Mm-hmm.
is murdered by Superman, and Superman, when he comes to his senses, realizes what he's done, kills the Joker.
Yeah. And
then from there on, Superman basically becomes a dictator.
Yeah, he creates like a dystopian future, right? From what I remember.
It becomes a dystopian future. So this version, you get that. You get the Superman and the whole Lois trick, the death, and you get all that, and then it goes to them basically trying to stop Superman becoming evil, basically turning evil and being horrible. So it's Justin Hartley is the voice of Superman, who previously was he actually played Aquaman in Smallville. Not Aquaman. He played Oliver Queen in Smallville.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And
because Aquaman was also in Smallville. They had everyone in Smallville at some point.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. No, he played. Sorry, he played Green Arrow in Smallville. He's been in sort of This Is Us and stuff like that. He's quite a good. He's not a bad actor. I didn't like his Superman. It felt a little light to me. It wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
Anson Mount is Batman.
That's interesting casting.
And again, it was all right.
I imagine he'd pull that off pretty well, actually. But
it's not bad. It's okay. Most of the voices are all right. The Joker is played by Kevin Pollak, which I thought was a very interesting choice. And for the most part, he kind of does it similar to Hamill. So it's not quite Hamill, but it feels very like Hamill.
A lot of them seem to emulate that, which is kind of understandable, I guess.
I mean, it's kind of the best. I think the best.
In my opinion, absolutely.
I mean, as we've said many times, the best Batman and the best Joker are
Conroy and Hamill. Yeah.
The animated series. So this version doesn't really get to the dystopian future stuff.
Yeah. So the game, from what I remember, was like I think it involved Flash. It was like a kind of Flashpointy kind of thing, if I remember rightly. I could be totally wrong, but
sort of. It's been a while since I played it, but if I remember rightly, it's the heroes.
Like, don't they arrive like heroes from our universe arrive in that universe, and everything's like dystopian when they get there, right?
Yeah. And they've done this, which I thought was actually quite an interesting way of doing it. They've got this, I think it's like a drug or something that the normal the human heroes take, so that they're on a level with, because let's face it,
you can build armor and stuff as well, can't you?
Yeah,
and things.
Superman punches Green Arrow, he's not getting up.
That's the end of that. Yeah.
So they sort of do they work their way around that
sure.
And the comics apparently are really, really good from what I've heard.
Sure.
So the animation isn't great. It's very basic
It looks very basic.
Yeah, they've not done that. It's not their best work. Annoyingly, there's a very weird subplot with Nightwing. Should I spoil it? Okay, I'm gonna slightly spoil this.
Do whatever you feel is best.
There's a subplot between the Nightwing and the Damian Wayne Robin.
Okay.
Where basically Damian Wayne, being the little shit he is
of course.
He's obviously it's like, I want to do things my way sort of thing, and Nightwing's training him, and like he throws he does an underhanded thing, but Nightwing always stops it sort of thing. But
sure.
During one of the fights, fucking hell, Damian does it again, but this time Nightwing doesn't see it coming, and Damian kills him.
Right.
So Nightwing dies, and then he is brought to this. I don't particularly know which deity it's supposed to be. It's very Indian. It's like Shiva or something.
Okay.
This deity makes Dick the dead man.
Okay.
Now I don't know whether that's in the comics or whether that's in the game. I certainly don't remember it from the game.
No.
But it's a very weird sort of. He's sort of imbued with the dead man's powers.
Right.
And even his suit looks very dead man, and he sort of he takes over people and stuff, and it's very odd. And the way they sort of, because it starts getting to, Superman starts taking out governments,
sure.
dictator. He starts doing all that, but it never quite gets as far as him fully taking over the whole world sort of thing. People die, which is,
as you would expect. Yeah,
the Joker definitely gets it. There's a sort of, Harley's brought in, but she sort of, it seems like they don't really know what to do with her. The way they end it is clearly not what they did in the comics, I don't think. And I was a bit sort of, okay, that's. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
But it feels anticlimactic, really, the way they sort of handle it.
Well, when you promise something it's injustice, having played the game, or at least I've not played the second, but I played the first, and I expect that dystopian future.
Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm pretty sure I completed the first one, so I do remember you.
You end up triumphing over Superman, and he's locked away, from what I remember.
He's locked away, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've only sort of played a bit, just a couple of matches sort of thing on 2, so I haven't got very far on 2 at all. But yeah, because I don't know whether maybe they should have sort of started it and then come back, started it as it is, and then sort of cut out the middleman sort of thing, and just had the dystopian stuff, and then brought the other heroes in, like that is in the game in that. But yeah, they didn't do that. They do something completely different. I think they were trying to make it more, slightly more grounded, and they're trying to show you Superman's fall, so you get more scenes of sort of
So
Superman.
it's almost I guess it's almost a prequel to Injustice more than Injustice.
Yeah, kind of, but it doesn't actually get to the injustice part. You know what I mean? It doesn't get to the full-on dystopian stuff. You get some nice scenes between Superman and Wonder Woman where, because Wonder Woman, she's got sometimes dubious morals.
Sure.
In the way she, wants to fix things because she sees, she's one of those strong, forceful people that, there's a right way and there's a wrong way, and evil is there, so we probably should be doing it this way.
Yeah.
So there was that, and obviously Batman is he's the voice of reason as usual, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's again, there's some nice sort of scenes in it, but I think overall it wasn't great. I was very disappointed.
That's a shame.
It's the animation it's not the worst I've seen DC do, but it's not great.
Even from the still though, I can see it's kind of like yeah.
The performances are a little hit and miss. I think Anson Mount was okay as Batman. He was all right, not the worst.
Yeah.
But I didn't think Justin Hartley did a great job, and most of the other voices are fine, but not great. The Joker was great. I thought it was great. Plastic Man actually was quite funny. Oliver Hudson,
right,
as Plastic Man was quite nice. I was just quite happy to see Plastic Man. It's not
I was going to say I'd be quite happy to see him.
He's actually quite a good character. I've always quite liked Plastic Man. So I thought he was actually one of the highlights of the movie. But other than that, I think you could probably miss this one.
Yeah, well, that's a shame. I'd heard reasonably good things about it, but I must admit I'm not kind of terribly won over by the art style that I can see here.
No.
But yeah, oh well. So maybe not so much Injustice. God, there was a time when DC Animated were like top of their game.
They were basically the only one doing good superhero stuff.
I still think like Red Hood is one of the best DC films ever made, animated or otherwise. It's amazing.
And I do like that the Dark Knight Returns. I think
their adaptation of Dark Knight Returns is really good. That's a really strong one. I also remember there was a Wonder Woman one that was really good as well.
I know the one you mean.
Came out just before the Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, that's a good one as well. Yeah, there's some really good DC stuff. I mean,
there really is. Yeah, there really is.
But I think recently they've sort of been tailing off a little. I actually haven't got around to seeing. Is it The Long Halloween?
Yes, I reviewed Long Halloween not so long ago.
You've seen it because you reviewed it not so long ago. I haven't got around to watching that yet. So
yeah, I remember that being okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one, from what I've heard and from what you said, sounds like it's worth a watch.
Yes, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think Injustice you probably skip.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe if it's free at some point, I'll give it a watch.
Red Sun wasn't that great either when I reviewed that. So
that's a huge missed opportunity because I love Red Sun. Red Sun's fantastic.
Right.
So that's a real shame. But well, let's move on to some TV because I didn't watch more than one movie this week, or not that I want to review anyway. I've watched plenty of old movies all the time. But I did watch some TV, and I did finish Lost in Space Season 3, which came out on Wednesday, and I blitzed it.
To say that only came out on Wednesday.
I think I finished work at 3, and I watched the whole thing.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I've been a big fan of Lost in Space since it returned. This reboot.
It gets a lot of shit, but I actually really enjoyed it.
I understand. I understand people giving it shit, right? Because science fiction and when it comes to Lost in Space, fucking emphasis on the fiction because the science is nonsense. Right? For a lot of the show, and I think that's a lot of what people hate about it. Like, and cards on the table. Half the stuff that happens in this series, you're like, fucking really? Like, Come
Yeah,
on.
I mean the cliffhanger for season 1.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
with them on that thing was like
In space. Oh, God, that was awful. That was like a real...
That really was bad.
If I hadn't loved the season up to that point so much, I would have stopped there, because that was jumping the shark so bad. I was like, fuck you. Because I was like, oh, they're dead. Okay, they're dead.
Yeah, that's
but no,
exactly,
no.
Like, oh God. Yeah, you could see Bruce clearly sailing over them.
Oh dear. But that aside,
I must admit, like you, I was like, oh, maybe I should just give up on this, because that was so bad.
The start of the show, it built up so much goodwill. By that point, I was like, "Oh, I can't quit now. I'll continue." And then it did pick up, and it was fine. But that was probably the most egregious of all 3 seasons in terms of like stupid things that people survive somehow. Although there are moments in season 3, that does continue. But that aside, so yeah, it picks up 1 year later. From the events of season 2, at the end of season 2, the parents are separated from the kids, and I'm not sure if it was a decision they made or whether it's just because obviously the actor playing Will Robinson is getting older, the kids are getting older. It helps if you have a time jump and you're like, okay, 1 year later. But I would applaud the show for saying it 1 year later. The kids have been separated from their parents for a year. They've had to learn to fend for themselves, albeit with the help of Robot and with Dr. Smith, who stows away. But they've had to learn to fend for themselves, and they've had to learn to lead. They're leading people now, and they're they've got relationships that have developed during that time, and all that kind of stuff. So that was really interesting. So it was really interesting seeing the kids, having to fend for themselves, having to, finally step up. And meanwhile, the parents are where we left them. They're trying to survive and avoid the robots. And obviously we ended season 2 on the cliffhanger of one of the evil robots knowing Will Robinson's name, and they're after Will Robinson for reasons unknown. And effectively, this season is the kind of scramble as both parties try to head for Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into spoilers because this literally came out 2 days ago as I'm recording this.
Yeah, don't go into spoilers because I haven't seen it yet.
So I'm not gonna spoil it. Other than to say, I think it was a triumphant end to the series. I think it works really well. There are some lovely character arcs.
It has a definite end then.
Has a definite end, and an end that I really felt fit the series perfectly. It brings a lot of the character arcs come to a satisfying end. I think it brings a satisfying end to the story of the robot race and to the robot. I really enjoyed that ending, and I think this series, more than the previous series, particularly season 2, I remember this being the worst in season 2. This actually does flashbacks and backstories a lot better. Like, it feels like the backstories are needed. There's like one episode in particular in this season that does backstory, but it feels very necessary and it furthers the narrative. Whereas in season 2 and season 1, I felt sometimes they did backstory as kind of filler and it wasn't really helping much. In this series, it was like, no, that needed to be there, and it furthered the narrative, and it really helped. So overall, I loved it. I think you're either going to get past the...
Is Maureen less annoying?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, yeah, for the most part. I mean, you've got more of the same here. Obviously, pretty much every kid in the show is a Mary Sue. Like...
Yeah.
I mean, there are scenes where you're like, Will Robinson, what the fuck? Like, how did you come up with that? But fine,
Will Robinson kind of always was, though,
wasn't
he?
But
really?
That's my point, right? So that is exactly my point. People that complain about this show, because I've seen that thrown around. Each character's a Mary Sue. Will's a Mary Sue. All of his sisters are Mary Sues, and you're right. But that's what Lost in Space was.
Yeah.
That's always what Lost in Space was. So for me, I can overlook a lot of this stuff because I'm a fan of Lost in Space.
Was the archetypal
Mary Sue,
clever kid?
Yes,
wasn't
He was the kid that
all,
solved everything.
All other clever kids sort of that came after Will Robinson kind of
in the mold of Will Robinson. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got here, unashamedly so. And I really don't mind it, because as a fan of Lost in Space, that's what I expect. And as a fan of Lost in Space, I do feel, as different as this story is, although season 3, actually, you get some like real nice callbacks to that opening season of Lost in Space. But I again don't want to spoil anything. But
I mean, I was so happy when Billy Mummy turned up in it.
Oh, that was great as the original Dr. Smith, right?
As the original Dr. Smith.
That was such a lovely touch. It was lovely, and I think most people missed that, but that was a lovely touch.
It was brilliant.
So, I do feel like this captures the spirit of Lost in Space, and the family coming together in the overwhelming odds. And I will say, because I don't want to go into spoilers, and we'll probably talk about it a bit more spoilery once you've seen it. That'll probably be a couple of weeks' time. Well, it will be a couple of weeks' time because I'll be doing a movie next week. So we can probably talk about it properly then. But I will say, for me, as a fan of Lost in Space, I was a fan of this series. I understand the science is firmly in the nonsense category a lot of the time. And the solutions they use to solve problems are kind of ridiculous. But I accept that as a trope of the original series. I accept it here. And more importantly, and this is an issue with modern sci-fi, it's an issue that has maybe not got worse, but during the pandemic I've come to disdain more and more. It is so nice to watch a positive science fiction show where people come together. They're not divided, they're united. And we have obviously bad things happen in the show, right? Obviously we have the robots, they're evil, they're killing people, they're trying to kill the human race, but the human race are banding together, the families are banding together in the face of overwhelming odds, and they're finding a solution to the problem. And especially during these depressing times of the pandemic and everything going on, it is so nice and refreshing when Star Trek, Star Wars, even Doctor Who are trying to like dystopian and depressing, miserable futures that we get from all of these science fiction shows. It's so nice to see things like The Orville or like Lost in Space. It's like, oh, a positive future, happy future. Things can work out. Humanity finds threats. That was Star Trek. Classically was always this.
Star Trek is the most egregious of the difference. I mean,
absolutely. Sorry, what I was
have been ruined, but Star Trek is the one that completely has gone dystopian.
It has, but
it's the one that never should.
No, absolutely, because that was what I was going to say. Is that the Star Trek at its core was always, yes, we encounter peril, obviously. We want a show, but the human race has evolved. The human race has found its place, and it's a force for good in the universe. And we encounter other races that haven't come as far as we have, and we try and help them. Or, we face overwhelming odds, but the humans are positive, and that's what's lost. It's lost in Star Trek. It's even lost in Star Wars now. They're all just fighting each other, and everyone's miserable as fuck. This is a show where I'm like, yes, they're facing overwhelming odds, but do you know what? They're uniting as a family. They're uniting as a race against overwhelming odds, and the future is positive as far as humanity is concerned. They face threats, but the threat isn't humanity itself, and it's not some miserable dystopian future where everything's fucked, because I'm so bored of seeing that now. And maybe pre-pandemic I was more open to it, but post-pandemic I'm like, I just want fucking positive, please, every now and again. I can get behind a dystopian future as much as anyone. Yeah, give us some hope. And this show gives me that. And I must admit, for that reason, more than anything, I'm willing to overlook the misgivings of the science fiction, and just sit back and enjoy something positive. And hey, there's representation in this show. There's strong female characters. There's diverse cast of characters, all coming together, and it's all nice and positive. And I don't want to. I can't say much more without spoiling it, so I'm skirting around the plot. But suffice to say, I think it gives a lovely end.
I was actually got to the point where I wasn't sure whether I was going to go out of my way. I was definitely going to watch it anyway.
Sure.
I didn't know whether I was going to go out of my way to watch it. I was like, I'll catch up with it.
You
maybe.
might completely disagree. It'd be interesting to see what you think.
If, from your report, I will probably get my ass.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see your thoughts, because you may completely disagree with me. I think I'm just in a place where I'm desperate for some positive future, and you know, it kind of gave me that. And there's those triumphant moments, and you know, like I said, unity coming together, and you know, it's good. I thought it had a really nice ending too. I don't want to spoil it, so I can't say anything really. I can't say much without giving away most. Although I will say, you know, the robots are quite well fleshed out now in the story, and we get to see something of their origin. We get to see where they come from.
Nice stuff in the second season where they were discovering like those towers and things. Yeah, and they were sort of figuring out what, you know, what about these like storms and things and what they did.
Yeah.
That was all really interesting. I was definitely enjoying a lot of that, and it like you said, it was from the initial sort of, you know, the deadbeat dad stuff and the Maureen being very annoying. They did start sorting that out, and they did start getting better. You know,
and again, it feels kind of justified, and you know, it works as a story. It works really well.
I love Toby Stevens. I think.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I like this whole cast.
Actually, the villain in the next season of Alex Rider.
I've not watched season 1 of Alex Rider, although I saw a trailer for it the other day, and I thought it looked pretty good. I think it was a trailer for season 2, I guess, but it looked really good. I was like, oh, this looks cool.
It's some, you know, it's a bit twee sometimes.
Sure.
But I really enjoy it. I think I'm sure did I not review? I'm sure
I think you might have done it. Do you know, it gets to a point where we've reviewed so much stuff I can't remember. Sometimes I forget what I've reviewed.
But Toby Stevens is the bad guy in season 2. So although I am getting horrible flashbacks to Die Another Day, which is never good.
Oh dear. Yeah, but
you know, I think she is actually a really great actress.
Fantastic.
I think sometimes she had some horrible things to do in this series.
Sure.
Which made her almost unlikable, but. Yeah, and I think all the kids are great.
The kids are fantastic.
Parker Posey is Dr. Smith actually.
Oh, she's great. Do you know, at first I was like, I'm really not sure. Like this, but, I love her now. She's so good. Yeah. And yeah, by the end of season 3, I felt like they'd given her a great story arc. And I really like her as Dr. Smith. Like you, in the first part of the first season, I was like, oh no, I'm not sure. But seeing the whole arc now, I am very happy, and I think she did a great job. And she's got a great character arc. They all do. I think it, you know, like I said, if you can, I know it's very, you know, contrived, I guess, and it's a get out of jail free card to say, you know, just leave your brain at the door and kind of just enjoy it. But you know, if you can put aside the more kind of silliness, you know, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you know, when it comes to the science fiction and the, like, you know, the reality is they all would have fucking died many times over by now. Absolutely. You know, putting that aside, and I feel like if you've got to season 3, you've probably accepted that that's the case. Then yeah, watch it and enjoy it for what it is. I had a blast. So yeah, like I said, it's just nice to have some positive sci-fi. It's nice. My wife really loves the film. She's not really a fan of the original series, but she loves the movie. I will have to hardcore disagree with her there, but I'm glad she enjoyed it. You know? There is stuff I really like. Oh no, there are elements for sure. There are elements that I like. Yes. There's some fun stuff. I really quite liked Lacey Chabot's Judy. Yeah, I hated Matt LeBlanc in that movie. No, Penny. Sorry, not Judy. Penny. Lacey Chabot's Penny, I thought was good, and Gary Oldman is great. Oh, Gary Oldman's great in everything. When he does the pain thing, the pain line, which is hilarious the way he uses it. There is some really nice stuff in that movie, but it is very bad and very silly. You're right, though. It's not terrible. It's not all bad. No, there are some nice things in it. I feel like if you watch it with the lens of of the original show, it helps. You know, when you're like, I can see why Gary Oldman was chewing the scenery so much in that movie, because if you know, he's obviously presumably old enough to be a fan of Lost in Space, and he's watched Lost in Space, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll be a villain in Lost in Space.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that in the same way that when you watch Batman and Robin through the lens of someone that wanted to make the TV series 66, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. I can see it now. Yeah. You know, so yeah. But yeah, so thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's good. In that, you know, I'm glad you've said that, because I will definitely go out of my way now to watch.
Well, I hope you like it and don't hate it, because then I would have wasted a lot of your time. But it's only like 8 episodes, so it's not long.
It's the way you. If it's the way you feel, then that.
Oh no, it is the way I feel. I always worry about recommending stuff to people, though. You know, it's like, oh god.
Well, I think you can only recommend what you like, really, and if they don't like it, then that's.
Yeah,
you know,
this is right now. This kind of thing is my jam. Positive sci-fi. It's nice. Things are good. Yeah. Things are going to be good in the future, not the horrible mess we're in every day right now. It's good. I like it. Anyway, you've watched some TV too, so why don't you tell me all about Lock and Key?
I have seen the 2nd season of Lock and Key.
Yeah.
So, Lock and Key, based on the comic book. It's about a bunch of kids who I did review.
You reviewed season 1, yeah.
Season 1. So, but I'll just as a quick recap, it's basically the tale of three children and their mother, whose father was murdered, and they end up moving into their father's ancestral home, which they've never been told about. Really, they knew it existed, but they never really been there very much, and they didn't know anything about the sort of history of this thing. And there are these hidden keys about this house that do certain things. So there's a key that transforms what you look like. There's a key that opens a door to any other door in the world, as long as you know where that door is. And there is the smallest son, Bodhi. He sort of befriends the sort of something in the well that is on the property.
Yeah.
Which is like it says it's his echo at first, and it turns out that this sort of creature is obviously the bad guy. They call Dodge. Basically, that Dodge escapes, and they sort of have to fight Dodge to sort of, Dodge wants all the keys, and the kids have to come together and fight off this, while they're dealing with the tragedy of their their father and their mother's fracturing sanity sort of thing. I really like the first season. It is nowhere near as brutal and nasty as the comic. I really like the comic. I have not finished the comic, so I do need to actually read more of the comic, so I really did like it. But for the most part, I actually really enjoyed what they did with the first season. I thought it was a really good first season. I liked Lesla de Oliveira. I'm sorry I butchered your name. Who played Dodge? I thought she was a really menacing presence.
Butchering names is what we do on this show, to be honest.
It really is, yes.
We're not very good at that.
No. Curse our poor English tongues.
Yes.
So this season pretty much picks up where the last season left off. They overcame Dodge, or they think they got rid of Dodge. There's a door beneath in the cliffs beneath the house that basically is a doorway to like a demon dimension. And at the end of the first season, they didn't get rid of Dodge. They actually threw in one of the characters' mother, who Dodge made look like her, and then knocked her out so that they would think that it was Dodge. Right. So they think they've got rid of Dodge, but they haven't. Dodge is now in the guise of I forget the name of the character now. Gabe. So Gabe, he's now Gabe, and the sister Kinsey is now dating Gabe, and they're doing this. They're making this movie, and they've made this movie, and they've got this sort of thing. And Gabe has got a demon, this demon which has taken over this Adina girl. So they're making their plans, and it's kind of more of the same sort of stuff. It's Dodge trying to get more of these keys and fuck over the kids. You're not quite sure what Dodge's plan is, whether it's world domination or just
nothing good.
Nothing good, yeah. What I will say is there was a lot more melodrama this season. It feels the first season was very sort of what should I say, Dawson's Creek, I suppose. Right. This is kind of more of the same. There's a lot of very sort of teen angsty stuff which will wear on people. There were parts where it certainly wore on me. I think there's one slight problem. I think that the Dodge in the Gabe, so mostly for this season, almost the entire season, Dodge is Gabe, so she's this boy, and the actor, I don't think the actor's he's not a bad actor, but he's not as menacing as the woman who plays Dodge when she's in the female form. And sadly in this season she's barely in it, which I think slightly to his detriment, because I think Gabe just isn't menacing enough. He tries his best, bless him.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's slightly comical when he's trying to be mean and moody,
and because failing miserably.
kind of just comes across as a pouty teenager.
Sure.
So it doesn't quite work as well as I think it did in the with the woman. But having said that, for the most part, I still enjoyed it. There's a few sort of plot bits that are like, okay, you could have probably handled that better.
Sure.
But I really enjoyed it. I think that the three main kids, I think, are really great.
Yeah.
The guy who plays their uncle, who I always call Bobby, because he was Bobby from Iceman, Bobby from X-Men. Aaron Ashmore. I feel so sorry for him from my own self, because every time he turns up in something, I go, "Hey, it's Bobby!"
Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
Which is probably not great, but I do think he's actually not a bad actor. He has got this really good thing. So when he was younger and with the kid's father, they obviously found the keys and they did stuff in the past with the keys. And at some point, they basically wiped his memory. They made sure that he wouldn't remember what they did. So the uncle has this sort of thing where he knows stuff's missing, but he can't find it. He can't sort of. Every time he sort of thinks about it, it just sort of he glazes over. It's like, oh no, nothing happened, sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's some really good stuff with him where they're trying to get his memories back.
Right.
And yeah, there was some really nice stuff in it. I really did enjoy it, but I think they've definitely kidified it more. They've toned it down a lot more than the comic is, which they did in the first season as well. So I think I did enjoy it. I would recommend it, but I will say it depends on how much you can cope with Dawson's Creeky teen angst stuff.
Sure, and to be fair, there is quite a bit of that in Lost in Space season 3 as well. So it kind of goes with the territory, I think. To be honest,
if you can deal with that stuff,
yeah,
if you can deal with the sort of more young adult stuff, I think it held up pretty well. It wasn't bad. There was some pretty good performances. Like I said, the main three kids I think are great. There's some nice little scenes. There's some scenes where they they go back to the sort of the 1700s and
Right.
the discovery of the portal and things. That was a little ropey at times. I think they probably could have done that a bit better, and they did. They've set up they've set up the new thing for season 3. And as I said, I haven't read past that. I haven't got that far in the comics either, so I don't know how much that diverges either. But I did enjoy it. I think if you like that, if you want to, relatively good teen sort of sci-fi show, give it a go. I think it was okay. It was not bad at all. I did enjoy it. I think the first season was stronger.
Yeah. Is it left open for a season 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
counting on it. Okay.
They full on set up season 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's Netflix, so
it's what they do.
Whether they get another season is anybody's bloody well guess at this point, because that's just the way they roll.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some. I did like the girl who is possessed by the demon, Eden, Helea Jones. I thought she was a nice addition as the in the first season. She's just this horrible, snarky teen, and she's kind of horrible, snarky in this, but she's got a little bit more bite, I think. And I really enjoyed her performance as this demon possessed child.
Sure.
Yeah, there's some really nice sort of some stuff in it. I really did enjoy it. So it's not going to be for everybody. And like I said, the teenage stuff will fucking grate on a lot of people. At times it grated on me, but overall I enjoyed it. I think it holds up all right.
Well, that sounds great. I will definitely be checking that out at some point.
And I'm not going to review it now because I don't think there's not enough episodes out. But I did start watching the Wheel of Time series.
Yeah, you said it's pretty good so far, right?
So far I'm enjoying it. I really like it. I did watch the first couple of episodes with my brother-in-law, who is a massive
Wheel of Time fan. Did he hate it?
No.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
The funny thing is so he watched the first episode. Well, he started the first episode, and the first line in the sort of first couple of lines in the first episode made him rage quit immediately.
Oh God, okay.
And he was like, "Fuck this shit," and he stopped. And then we went round to sort of stay for a bit, and we were like, "What should we watch?" And so we were sort of like, fine, we actually did watch Lock and Key there. So we watched Lock and Key, and it was like, "What do we watch now?" And it's like, "Well, Wheel of Time's there," and he's like, "Well, I don't want to watch it." It's like, well, come on, let's just give it a go. And I said, if it's shit, I said, we'll just turn it off. And
if it's shit, I will enjoy watching you rage.
Yes, exactly.
It's win-win for me.
So we started watching it, and he hated quite a lot of it, but he was actually surprised at quite a lot of it as well. So he did. I mean, I've read the first book, and I couldn't get into them. I wasn't as enamored. I think the main 3 characters in the books I didn't like very much, so I didn't finish the book or didn't go through it. And there was a lot that I did not remember. There were bits and pieces that sort of, fragments that I remembered. But he said some of the things they have changed, he's seen why they've changed it, and it makes more sense. He actually said that there were some genuine changes that he liked.
Sure.
So one thing that he did say was the character of Perrin, who he said for himself was one of the weaker characters in the books.
Right.
He's got like an interesting arc, but he said his origins in this they not really spoiling anything, but they've given him a wife and a more of a motivation for why he's the broody, mopey guy that he is, sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Which makes sense. And one thing I will say is Rosamund Pike, I love Rosamund Pike.
She's great.
Phenomenal. She's great in it. I mean, I think you can tell with some of the actors, you think, where did the money go in this series? Probably on Rosamund Pike.
And well spent it was too.
Yeah, they probably didn't spend too much on some of the other actors, but Rosamund Pike's good enough.
They spent it where it counts.
For the most part, I really enjoyed it. So far, I'm enjoying it. It is. I think a new episode came out yesterday, which I haven't watched yet. But yeah, I think give it a go. So far I've enjoyed it.
Cool. Well, is there anything else before we bugger off?
The only thing I wanted to discuss was the casting of Nicolas Cage.
I'm weirdly down with it.
Yeah, so Nicolas Cage has been cast as Dracula in the Renfield movie.
I think, but I'm down with it. I'm certainly curious enough to see how he does. I think this could be interesting. We've loved his resurgence in the last couple of years. He's totally pulled himself back up. He has
by his by his bootlaces.
Yeah,
and he's made a conscious effort to do better movies.
He really does. He really has. Yeah.
And
he's made some of my favorite films of the last few years. I cannot
absolutely.
He's got a lot of goodwill with me these days.
as I've said, I think probably he's going to be my movie of the year. Actually, is probably I have scarce few weeks left to watch it to see if it makes my list, but I think it probably will. So it's on my list to see before we do our year end. So more movies that I can before we do our top fives, but so the thing that slightly makes me nervous is they've also cast Awkwafina.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she can be very, very annoying. She can do drama.
Yes.
But the things that I've heard is that it's set in modern day. I can't remember who's playing Renfield. Is it Nicholas Hoult?
I think it might be, actually.
I think it's Nicholas Hoult, isn't it?
Which is tremendous, if that's the case.
He's I really like Hoult. I think he's a good actor. I've been hearing rumblings that it might be a comedy.
Well,
which makes me slightly nervous because, yes, we know that Cage can do comedy pretty well. He's at Raising Arizona and stuff, but he's also been in some bad stuff as well that have been comedy wise. And I don't know what they're gonna, how this is gonna pan out because, until the last sort of the last couple of Universal movies have been okay. The Invisible Man was really good.
I really enjoyed that movie for the most part. Yeah.
No, what was the other?
Well, The Mummy was shite.
Yes, The Mummy was fucking appalling. Yes, it was only that. It was only that one that was good.
There was Dracula Untold, which was shite, and then The Mummy, which was shite. But Invisible Man was like the reset on the series. Like Invisible Man was like, okay, we're back in firmly into good territory.
I don't know whether they're going to even attempt. I'm guessing not. They're not going to attempt a universe yet.
Well, they're still talking about Bride of Frankenstein as a movie, aren't they?
They still do. I don't know whether that's with the cast that they had before. I don't think it is now.
No idea.
Because it was going to be Angelina Jolie, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I'd like her to direct it, though.
I'd be
down for that.
Yeah, that's not a problem there. But yeah, I'm a little worried if it's going to be a comedy.
I think I'd be a bit disappointed if it turned out to be a comedy. I'm down with it. I mean, I love Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I like comedy horror, and I don't mind Dracula being part of that comedy. But I do feel like this cast is kind of lending itself towards being like a real credible, decent movie. And we'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only thing I really had on the docket.
Well, what are we watching next week? That's the question.
So, completely yours and my wife's fault.
Ha!
After our
Great.
discussion,
We're watching
after our
Batteries Not
discussion,
Included.
we are going to watch Batteries Not Included. After the
Hooray!
discussion last week with you and my wife, the Batteries Not Included is what we're going to be doing.
Is she going to join us?
Probably not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, you can relay her thoughts.
She watch the movie with me, but she will.
Awesome.
Not.
I've been wanting to rewatch Batteries Not Included for so goddamn long now. And this is basically what started it. Was last week, I think, before we reviewed Flash, your wife was in the room and we were talking about it, and I said how much because it's one of her favorite films of all time, right?
It is one of her favorite films. Yeah.
I have such fond memories of watching that as a kid. I haven't watched it since I was a kid, I don't think, but I literally
well, that's interesting.
Wore the goddamn tape out as a kid, though.
Because it's Susie's favourite film. I sort of catch it like at least once a year with her, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. So,
yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So here we go. That's what we go.
And it's kind of Christmassy. It's kind of moving us in that Christmassy direction for me. It's quite a Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie, but it's the movie that you used to watch at Christmas.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a movie that tended to be on at Christmas.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we will be back next time with Batteries Not Included. But until then, stay safe and we'll catch you next week.